The carving, according to its label, was of leshy wood, described as native to the planet Alpine and difficult to work as well as enduring and beautiful. Angelo Lombok, a stranger to this stuff and to this world as well, turned it over in his fingers, pondering. It was certified as an original handwork, and the artist did not appear to have been bothered by the reputed difficulty. The basic style was the same as that of the Jew-Lynx carvings Lombok had been shown before leaving Earth, but the subject matter was more disturbing. It showed a man and a woman, fugitives, for their bodies leaned forward on long striding legs even as their anxious faces turned to look behind them. The swirls of wooden clothing were somewhat overdramatic, but what could you expect from an artist 10 years old? Sometimes Lombok wished that he had in one way or another gone more seriously for art. Well, one only had a single lifetime to spend, 400 or 500 years at the outside, and now he had invested too much of his in work along another line to consider starting over. I guess this here indicates that there's life extension technology or something. 400 or 500 years. That's just a casual throw in there from the author. And now he had invested too much of his in work along another line to continue starting over. With a faint sigh, he stretched up on his toes to set the carving back upon the gift shop shelf, which no doubt silently recorded the replacement and forebore to sound an alarm when he turned away. The one bag he had brought with him was small and light, and he needed no help to carry it through the modest bustle of the passenger terminal and outside to where a string of compact aircraft waited to be hired. Looking something like a tiny brown wood carving himself, Lombok settled into a comfortable seat aboard the next conveyance to glide up to the dock, and issued orders. I wish to visit the family Julinks. It's spelled it's spelled Geulinx, by the way. It came out Julinks, which he had been informed was the locally correct pronunciation. He suspected that, like many other famous and semi-famous people, the Julinx clan had programmed obstacles into their local transport control system to forestall unknown visitors, and that these obstacles he now endeavored to bypass. I am not expected, but they will want to see me. I represent the Academy on Earth, and I am here to offer their son Michael a scholarship. And maybe it's accurate to say Michelle. Michelle. Michel. Michelle. I am here to offer their son Michel a scholarship. He had the coordinates of the place ready to supply if necessary, but the machine evidently did not need them. It seemed his ploy had worked, for in a moment he was on his way, the rim of the spaceport dropping away smoothly beneath the climbing vehicle and a forested mountain leaning closer. Some of the flora here, he had been informed, was Earth descended, as were of course the colonists. Upon a crag that slid past now, he recognized bristlecone pines, close molded to the rock by centuries of wind. His flight among the mountains, here only thinly inhabited, took him into the advancing night. As soon as the cloudless sky began to darken, there appeared overhead part of the planet's network of defensive satellites, Celestial clockworks in a slowly shifting pattern. There were no real stars, but also to be seen in the jeweled velvet of this almost private space were the faint, untwinkling sparks of three natural planets and two small moons, all now surrounded and enfolded by what looked like an infinity of never ending light. That engulfing blackness was all dark nebula, called black wool by the natives. It was thick enough to blot out, even here, the core itself, and the realization of that fact made Lombok uncomfortable, whereas, of course, he would have been unaffected by the familiar and infinitely vaster looming of the stars. All right, so what this is basically insinuating here is that this planet Alpine is a habitable world that's situated inside of a thick nebula, like a big cloud of gases, uh, and that blocks out a lot of light from um, everywhere. All right, the military situation in the Alpine system had not yet deteriorated to the point where blackouts were in order, and the Julink's chalet, halfway up another mountainside, was almost gaily lighted. It was a consciously pretty building, in a half-timbered style evidently copied from something in Earth's long past. He had seen its picture used in the family advertisements on the art journals. When he was sure that he had almost reached his goal, Lombok opened his small valise and riffled once more through the papers carried on top. All in order, all perfectly convincing, or it better be. A road, devoid of traffic, save for what appeared to be one heavy hauler, whose headlights revealed the narrow pavement, came winding upward from the valley floor. Other dwellings must be even rarer here than near the spaceport, if one could judge by the lack of other lights. The landing deck at the chalet, though, was well illuminated, with one empty aircraft parked and waiting at one side of it. Lombok landed gently under soft floodlights, just as a man and a woman, no doubt alerted by some detection system, came out of the main building a few meters away to stand and watch. His cash card in a slot conferred payment on the machine. A moment later, Lombok was standing on the deck, valise in hand, while his transportation whirred away behind him. And keep in mind, this book was copyrighted in 1979. So there's a lot of these technologies that our main character here is just using, and the author presents as like seamless parts of that world are. I mean, they're not exactly old. You know, they're still using at places in the 70s. Uh, digital calculator watches. Digital watches are still a new cool thing. Musical synthesizers are just now becoming a thing. The man, tall and gray, watched it go as if he might have liked to keep it waiting for a visitor or impostor whose stay would probably be brief. The woman came forward, though, hand outstretched and ready to be eager. Mr. Lombok, did I hear you recording in the flyer correctly? Something about the academy and a scholarship? I trust you did. Her hand enveloped his. She was broadly built and muscular. and Lombok's briefing on Earth had informed him that she had been a successful athlete in her first youth. So I guess somehow these people have uh, they can reverse aging. You don't just age slower. You get to a certain age and then they regress you or something. Uh, anyway, I'm Carmen Julinks, of course, and this is Sixtus. Let's take that bag for you. Lombok's briefing had informed him also that on Alpine a woman generally took her husband's family name. Sixtus, taller, grayer, older than his wife, now came forward, cordial in a quiet way now that it seemed that there was nothing else for him to be. For a few moments they all stood there in the fine evening, and it occurred to the visitor that daytime in the lower altitudes must be quite hot, exchanging pleasantries about Lombok's journey as if he were an invited guest, and about the beauty of the spot, which he was sure he would appreciate come dawn. And now, what is this, Mr. Lombok? About a scholarship? He twinkled at them reassuringly, and put a small hand through each of their arms. Perhaps we should go in, where you can sit down and brace yourselves for a pleasant shock. We would like Michel. How is he, by the way? Oh, fine, the woman murmured impatiently, with a quick glance toward the house. What? We would like to pay his way, and that of at least one adult parent or guardian, to come to Earth and study with us at the Academy for 4 years. The woman literally swayed. 5 minutes later, they were in the house, but no one had really sat down as yet. Carmen was moving this way and that in excitement, piling up false starts towards sitting beside her guest, who kept jumping up from the sofa out of politeness, and being urged to sit again, and organizing some kind of meal or snack by way of beginning a celebration. Meanwhile, Sixtus stood leaning in a timbered doorway, with the look of a man thinking and thinking. He had, very early in the discussion, hinted that he would like to see Lombok's credentials, which had been immediately produced and were impeccable. The thing is, murmured Lombok, as soon as a sort of temporary calm had established itself. Sixtus shot a glance that said, I knew there was a catch. His wife did not receive it, being suddenly fixated, with a stricken look, upon her visitor. What? She breathed. The thing is that there is very little time in which this particular opening can be filled. You understand, some of our most generous grants and bequests impose conditions upon us that we do not like, but still must honor. This opening, as I say, must be filled quickly. It will be necessary for Michael to come at once. Within 2 days he must start for Earth. But there's no ship, is there? Fortunately, the convoy I arrived with is laying over for a day or two. The decision to offer Michel the scholarship was reached only about 6 months ago on Earth, and I was immediately dispatched. Luckily, there was a convoy scheduled. There was no time to send you any preliminary announcement or ask if you would accept. Oh, we would quite understand that. And naturally, anyone involved in art. The capitalization was audible. Would just, of course, there's no real hesitance without accepting. But only 2 days? That is when the convoy leaves. And who knows when the next ship will be available. Earth, as you know, is months away. Oh, we know. Somewhere in the reaches of the house below, a muted rumble, logs perhaps, being dumped from that heavy hauler. I understand that this is very short notice to give you, but at the same time, it is a very rare opportunity. All of us at the Academy have been much impressed by the examples of Michel's work that have reached us. The agent said his stuff was beginning to sell on Earth, but I never. Oh, only 2 days? Sixtus. What? Sixtus nodded, smiled, shook his head a little in various directions. Below, more noise. A power saw ripping with wood. A power saw ripping with good appetite at wood, no doubt producing a texture more modern cutting devices could not duplicate. There were, Lombok had been told, a small army of workers here, cabinet makers, carvers, apprentices. He remarked into the tense silence. I noticed one of Michel's carvings on sale at the Spaceport gift shop. I've really been looking forward to meeting him. Is he? Oh, of course. He'll be very anxious to meet you. I think he's probably working now. Carmen cast vague, anxious eyes upward. They led Lombok up some stairs, then along a hall. Sixtus, who had acquired Lombok's bag, dropped it en passant into the open doorway of a dim, pine-scented bedroom. The house's interior was as luxurious and calculatedly rustic as its outside. Of several rugged doors near the end of the hallway, one was ajar. Carmen pushed it gently open, peering in ahead of the two men. Michel, we have a surprise guest, and he'd like to see you. The room was large, even for a bedchamber workshop combined, and as well lighted as a jeweler's showplace. There was a rumpled bed at the far end, piled with oversized pillows, against a row of windows now darkened by the night outside. Their draperies hung open as if forgotten. Against the wall beside the door, a long, elaborate workbench stood piled with woodworking equipment and stocks of material. Midway along the bench, the boy perched on a stool, a 10-year-old with long, faded hair. He looked back at Lombok solemnly as the small man entered. Hello, Michel. Hello. The boy's voice was thin and ordinary. His coloring was not so blond so much as dusty colorless. A narrow face and large, washed-out looking eyes made him appear frail, but he took Lombok's hand firmly enough and looked him boldly in the eye. He was barefoot and wearing what looked like pajamas, ingrained with wood dust and fine shavings, as if he had spent the day in them. Oh, Michel, Carmen said, why don't you change? Mr. Lombok will think you're ill. Too ill for a... How would you like to go on a long trip, sweetie? Michel slid off his stool and stood scratching the back of one knee with the opposite foot. Where? Earth, said Lombok, speaking as to an adult. I'm authorized to offer you a scholarship to the Academy. Michel's eyebrows went up just a notch, and then his face was normalized by a very natural 10-year-old smile. 10 minutes after that, the adults had adjourned to a terrace, where a gentle aura of infrared from some concealed source kept off what must be the night's increasing chill, and warm drinks were brought by an efficient robot rolling on almost silent wheels. You must be very proud of him, Lombok remarked, taking his first sip, watching the others carefully. Couldn't be more if we were his bio parents, Sixtus put in. We're both of us carvers, too. Of course, They certainly did a superb job of genetic matching at the adoption center. Lombok sipped his drink once more, carefully, and put it down. I didn't realize he was adopted, he lied, in tones of mild interest. Oh, yes, he knows, of course. It occurs to me, may I ask a somewhat personal question? Please do. Well, I was wondering if you had ever made any effort to find out who his bio parents were or are. His hosts both shook their heads, amused. Sixtus assured him the premier of Alpine himself couldn't get that information out of that place. They keep the medical profiles of the bio parents available for health reasons, but that's all they ever give out. Nothing else, since the bio parents say they want it sealed. I see, Lombok pondered. Even so, I think I shall have to try it tomorrow. The assistant director has a pet project, you see, correlating bio parents' behavior and lifestyle with the children's artistic development. Is this adoption center on Alpine? In Glacier City, but I'm sure going there won't do you any good. I suppose not, but I'll have to report that I made the effort. In the morning, I'll fly over there. And then, am I to take it that our offer is accepted? Before he got an answer, Michel himself, now fully if casually dressed, came with quick eagerness out onto the terrace and dropped into a chair. My, such energy, his mother tensed. The boy was looking keenly at the visitor. Have you ever seen a berserker? He demanded directly, evidently following some train of his own thoughts with youthful single-mindedness. Sixtus chuckled, and Lombok tried to make a little joke of it. No, I'm still healthy. That, of course, was no answer at all, and he saw that Michel expected one. No, I haven't. I've never been on a planet under direct attack. I don't travel in space a great deal. My trip out here was, as I mentioned, uneventful in the way of military action, thanks to a strong convoy and or good fortune. No alarms at the bottleneck? This from Sixtus. You must have come through that way. A painful truism, for there was no other way to reach the Alpine system, surrounded as it was by parsec after parsec of dust and gas, too thick for any practical astrogation. No trouble, Lombok reiterated. He studied the adults' faces. I know, some folks would feel alarmed at the prospect of a long space voyage just now. But let's face it, the way of things are going, the way things are going, Alpine itself is not going to be the safest spot in the inhabited galaxy. And if and when the bottleneck does close completely, either as a result of nebular drift or through berserker action, well, everyone on Alpine is going to be in a state of siege at best. He was not telling the Jew-Lynx clan anything they did not already know, but he was discussing the very chancy essentials of their future. And all three were watching him and listening with the utmost concentration. He went on, speaking for myself, I feel more comfortable making the trip back now than I would staying. Sixtus was looking up at the nebular night, like some farmer judging when a wild thunderstorm was likely to assault his tender crops. I have to stay here for the sake of the business, he announced. There are other members of the family depending on it. I have a sister. She has children. And there are workers, dealers. I can't just pick up and leave on 2 days' notice. The business is important, Carmen agreed. She and her husband were looking at each other as if they had independently arrived at the whole solution, to the surprise of neither. But then, Michelle's future is also. Her marveling lips formed the next words in silence. The Academy. The convoy leaves in 2 days, Lombok prodded. 2 days at the outside. They've promised me a few hours' notice. In fact, the fleet would move when he told the admiral he was ready. But no one on Alpine, Lombok hoped, dreamed as much. He must go, said Carmen, and stroked her son's long hair. His eyes were shining with anticipation. And he's simply too young to go alone. Sixtus, how long do you think it will take you to get things in order here and join us? Lombok drew on the smoker he had just lighted, meanwhile watching the others reflectively. The lady was more excited than her son. She must see an old dream come to life. Herself at the academy where she would move among the famous people of the world of high-priced art, with her energy and cleverness and her son's talent that would lie open before them. The man at Moonbase who had sent Lombok had calculated well. Lombok in his mind's eye saw her at Moonbase, stunned, perhaps outraged when she learned the truth. The truth-telling would have to be handled carefully when the time came.